Editor's note, this video was supposed to drop in June because that's when the main event happened last year, but it's late due to summer class and work. What the heck was that? Where's that frickin' crap? There it is. Okay, I'm going outside. Oh, well, there he goes. Hello? I'm still home, you know.
Mama. Baby girl. Oh, jeez. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Back when I was a kid, I was never really known to hate anything because I was oh so sympathetic, but that changed drastically over the years. I used to have the dumbest fears as a child, and they caused me to sleep with my closet light on every night. And every time I had a nightmare that sent me into a traumatic state for about a week, I would go sleep in my mom and dad's room, and they never said no because I was still in single digits of age during that era. During nights that I would feel scared of something that I obviously knew was non-existent, I would mostly hide under my bed sheets and not make a singular move. Every fear that has put me into such a state as a kid eventually wore off because that was all the way back in my childhood, considering I had my first nightmare when I was about 2 years old. Crazy how I remember that, right? And you know, growing up, irrational fears do tend to go away after a while, and when you look back at it several years later, you're like, ha, that's not scary at all. However, there is something that has always carried over, filling me with unforgettable fury and irrational fear, and that thing is horror games. First off, my question is, what makes people think horror games are so entertaining? I honestly don't understand it, since horror has always been my least favorite genre of all time. I barely knew anything about it as a kid because I was sure my mom would not allow it, and she has a very good reason for that. At the time, my siblings were more open with the internet, and they were introduced to specific things from childhood friends I don't remember the names of. The more they talked about it, the more my mom found out, and even she knew because she would tell true heartbreaking stories that were caused by the horror games they were discussing. Since then, every horror game I came across never appealed to me, and the more I encountered it, the more I just wanted to stay far away from it for the rest of my life. Sure, there were some times where my mom would have conversations with my siblings and me because they always got me involved regarding unfortunate life-changing stories that were caused by horror games. I don't remember a whole lot of them off the top of my head, but the most life-changing story that hit us was back in 2015. I think that's about the time this specific horror game came out. I'm not sure. I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. This was when it was very popular and still is to this day, surprisingly. My siblings were introduced to it from friends who would watch YouTubers play it, and eventually my siblings started watching it too. Once they got me involved, I did not join them. I never actually went out of my way to watch that particular content on my own. I only went off of what they were saying about what they watched. Then suddenly, once my mom heard about this conversation between me and one of my brothers about that game, of course, she had to drop the hammer. And ever since that day back in 2015, I have felt nothing but hatred for this horror franchise. It also bothered me back in the 6th and 7th grade because all of my classmates found out about my hatred for that franchise and would annoy me with it every time they came close to me. And since I was so easy to set off back then, they knew what it took to get a single reaction out of me, but thank goodness I don't have to go through that anymore, am I right? But since 2015, that horror franchise has been no more than my mortal enemy, and just looking at it makes me feel uncomfortable to the point that I would actually feel sick. Now, I did mention that I played Lethal Company with Supalink and Litten557 at the end of the year last year. What convinced me to do it was the funny content that other YouTubers were getting out of it. The first day we played, there were indeed funny moments and some insane big brain plays from me. The second day was so much worse because I ended up seeing things that I didn't see on YouTube. I did my whole spiel about that incident elsewhere, and I have not played the game since. At this point, I know a horror game when I see one, and I'm gonna keep my distance from the essence of its aura. Surely, whenever I was more into the internet, there were some more horror games I came across here and there, mainly because they were in videos uploaded by some YouTubers that I thought would make it funnier. And I was right. For the most part. Most of the ones I've heard of had to do with going somewhere haunted just to escape. And you're probably wondering, why are these video game characters going to these haunted abandoned places like a blooming idiot? If you're not thinking that, at least I am. Now, the moment I came across these games, I was indeed scarred again, but the trauma began to die off much faster growing up. I eventually stopped sleeping in my mom and dad's room or sleeping with the closet light on because I'm a big girl now, but the one thing that still seemed to occur was hiding under my bed sheets and not moving. Okay, Annalise, you're not a child anymore, so why are you scared of something that's not there? Well, duh, I know it's not there, but it is there in my mind, and that's because I have an unforgetting memory and high-functioning autism, which really screws with my mental state when it comes to traumatic crap like horror games. One thing that I often struggled with at night was that I would be facing one direction, and I believed that whatever was stressing me out or scaring me was right behind me, so if I turned around, it would just be right there to squeeze my guts out, and there's nothing the rest of my family can do about it. Okay, maybe that last bit was a bit too extreme. Moving on. At one point in high school, there was a strong wave of horror games that struck the internet, and I feel like I can bring up the ones that didn't actually traumatize me. One of those is Roblox Doors. My mom never allowed any of us to play Roblox for certain reasons, and I still have never felt the urge to play it. Doors is pretty self-explanatory. It's a horror game where you go into this haunted hotel and have to make it past 100 doors before reaching an elevator that leads you out of the hotel. However, there are also several unique monsters that appear randomly, each having different abilities and strategies to avoid them. And they have probably the most bland names any monster could have. Oh, where have I seen a haunted hotel before? Anyway, another horror game that is something my siblings have actually played and failed to persuade me to play after several attempts is Phasmophobia, aka the fear of ghosts. In this game, you and your friends enter this haunted mansion after you are given the name of a ghost that you must identify. The main goal is to correctly guess the type of ghost that you are given based on its abilities. The most unsettling thing I've heard about this game is that you can call out the name of the given ghost, which I was told later that the more you do it, you might actually be calling ghosts into your home. This game never traumatized me because I was never involved, but one of my siblings was for a while. For almost a year, he would not sleep in his own bed. Instead, he slept on the floor between mine and my sister's rooms. Before I move forward, I do want to mention one more horror game that I've seen barely any gameplay of, and that I was introduced to right before the main course of this video occurred, and that is Garten of Banban. I've only seen one video on it, and it's about an abandoned elementary school. All of the monsters in the game are actually the school's mascots, including this frickin' petty dodo bird. And there are a few areas where they are drawn on the wall with a quote that might often be shown in elementary schools, such as "eat your veggies" or "spread kindness everywhere." Another thing I briefly learned about the game is that you fly drones to activate switches. There are some puzzles you get jump scared for failing. There are a lot of loud noises, I assume the monsters hate each other because they get in fights all the time, and the story makes zero sense at all. It really had no effect on me, but I just felt kinda petty when the whole reason for this video happened. There's a few more horror games that I have never seen any actual gameplay of. I've just seen parodies on YouTube for some reason, which were also uploaded by the same YouTubers I thought would make it funny. A couple of examples include Poppy Playtime and Rainbow Friends. I have also heard of the Backrooms, and I have absolutely no knowledge about it, and I feel like I don't have a need to, and I'll tell you why later. I don't understand what makes them so popular because I remember going to a band competition during my senior year in high school, and whenever leadership was called from the stands to receive awards, which included me, I overheard children talking about these games I've heard of somehow and trying to reenact them. I honestly feel like the trauma I get is not the jump scares, it's how hideous the characters look, and every time I come across them, I always do my best to just look away. This could be anywhere, not just YouTube or videos where the games are not the primary focus. There are some videos I've seen where the publisher included characters from horror games or squeezed in one or two references, which is always unexpected if it's not included in the thumbnail, the title, the description, or the comment section. The feeling I get from that is nothing but utter disappointment, especially if it's a Mario video or a Kid Icarus video, believe it or not. Now, since the last horror games I came across were not as bad as my mortal enemy from 2015, I felt like I had finally built an immunity against anything new, and I barely had any restless nights. I may have just stopped sleeping with a light on because I naturally sleep better in pitch darkness. Becoming a mature adult, I finally knew what not to view because I knew that horror games would just pull me down while the innocent games I love are trying to pull me up from that pit of despair. Just kidding. Once I learned about fan games and ROM hacks, I eventually realized how much power the professional game developers were capable of creating, despite being fans and not official employees. The fact that some of these people actually went to school to learn to code this crap. There were horror games that were developed throughout this community that were made from classic video games by Nintendo and Sega. And being a lifelong Nintendo fan, this is really personal. This entire concept is called creepypasta, and I didn't know that until one of my siblings told me 2 weeks after I saw those videos. I mean, I've seen people talk about it in other places, but I didn't really understand it then. I kid you not, the moment I heard about it, I immediately thought about pasta and the whole concept being Italian for some reason. That's just me taking everything literally as usual. I don't even know if creepypasta are even beatable because I have never seen anyone finish a single one. I've only ever seen people give up or the game crashed. And this ended up becoming a cycle that took me a while to break out of, experiencing these traumatic creepypastas that gave me the same recurring nightmares back to back to back over and over again. There's a whole lot more where that came from. The first one I saw was Sonic EXE, which had traumatized me for about a couple days before it wore off. So what I was picking up here was that anything ending in EXE was essentially an immortal and omnipotent abomination of a universally adored video game protagonist. Meaning that the real protagonist of the game was another universally adored character who was soon to face a miserable fate of brutal and bloody death. Basically, what happens is that the title screen is typically a tad suspicious until you get thrown into your usual first level that is an exact copy from the original game. You go through the level normally until you reach the end, and all crap breaks loose from that point on. Sometimes even the first level may be a bit unsettling, and sometimes you'll get interrupted by creepy cutscenes that change the setting non-stop. These games also have their own OSTs, which I personally think is crazy. And rightfully so. Sonic was not the only target here. In fact, Mario has been a popular target numerous times. Well, there's a lot of stupid myths going around about Super Mario 64, but Mario isn't really the victim. There's a couple ROMs that have given this classic gem in the Nintendo world a haunting backstory. Some of the biggest ones I have heard of include the Birthday Toad, Elle is Real, the Wario apparition, and Another Princess is in Our Castle. I think I said it right. Then there was one more. B3313. I don't know. I've only ever seen 3 pictures, so I have no knowledge about it at all. None of these really impact the actual innocence of the characters because I personally think that these rumors are entirely different. Well, except the last one. Actually, I think it's more recent because I've been seeing articles about this Ghost Peach game in Mario 64 on my Google News for God knows why. Nobody's name ended in EXE, and there's also not a lot of violence and bloodshed. It's just really unsettling. If I'm gonna be honest, Mario EXE was not so bad because at that point I was used to what was going on. Everything was actually kinda chill because in one of the games, probably titled Super Mario PC Port, I was very drawn to the OST because the music nerd I am noticed that it was the exact same as the original ground theme from Super Mario Bros, but in a minor key. So now that I've learned to face the trauma of a lifetime, it's all smooth sailing, right? Well, one of the Mario EXE videos I came across last year in June threw a Kid Icarus Uprising style false ending at me halfway through and hit me with probably the greatest nightmare fuel I have seen in any creepypasta ripped from an innocent classic Mario game. However, Mario was not the victim this time. Luigi was, in this horror parody titled Too Late, aka the video game that actually sent me to therapy. I went out one Wednesday to apply for my second job when this video appeared in my YouTube notifications because it was by one of said YouTubers. I don't remember whether I saw it before or after I got home. All I know is that I was watching it while multitasking that night, and the next day I instantly regretted it. This all happened last year, so keep in mind that I had just graduated from high school at this point. Again, I whipped out my inner music nerd when I heard the minor key in the ground theme from Super Mario Bros. 3 until it happened. The moment when Mario just started bawling before coming across the worst abomination ripped from a beloved video game, it was all over for my sanity. What I'm picking up here is that in this fake timeline, Luigi was somehow killed by this pseudo-Luigi, and Mario is eternally depressed throughout the entire game, even though he is being chased by a nightmare-fueled Luigi that is more traumatizing than the game over cutscene from Luigi's Mansion Beta for the GameCube. Do you want to know why? Well, you're gonna have to just look it up yourself because there's no way in a million years I will show that stuff on this channel for the sake of my sanity. Here, I'll draw the background for the levels instead. Every night since that day, I have had the same bad dreams for about a week straight, and the first one is what most likely started this cycle. One of the bad dreams I can recall probably pissed me off the most. It was quite literally the same story as the Too Late creepypasta, but it was a Kid Icarus version instead. And if you know the story of Kid Icarus Uprising, then you'll get it. It started off during the Chaos Kin arc when Pit's wings burn in chapter 21, and normally in chapter 22, Dark Pit would be the one to fly to the rewind spring to save him. Well, it did happen, but after the Pandora fight when Dark Pit dipped Pit's wings into the spring to restore them to normal, they instead caught fire again and he died. This left Dark Pit in a trauma spiral with endless intrusive thought that he was the one responsible for Pit's death, kinda like Mario in the first level of the creepypasta, while Palutena and Verity treated him like that. And lo and behold, Pit came back just like Luigi did in the creepypasta. The level changed to a similar setting as the Dark Woodland level in the creepypasta, and Dark Pit was forced to escape while being chased by a poltergeist Pit with a very not so photogenic appearance. This may mean that you could play as Dark Pit more in Kid Icarus Uprising, but I personally don't give a crap because I'd much rather play as Dark Pit in an additional Kid Icarus story that looks like literally anything but this. And yes, the next level was just like the Bloody Cavern and, oh, frick that, I'm done. Just look up Too Late at your own risk if you're envious of the detail that I refuse to show images and videos of here for the life of me. Hey genius, you technically made a creepypasta yourself. Hey psycho, shut up! Now, fun fact, Super Mario Bros. 3 was one of the first few video games I have ever played. My nana used to own a Game Boy Advance, and when I was little, she would let me sit next to a window and play it, and I played it a lot. At one point, she let me take it home and keep it, and I know for a fact that the cartridge is still in it because that's the only game I ever had on that Game Boy Advance. And yet, I still haven't beaten it. Look, I was a little kid last time I played it, so cut me some slack, alright? Since it was on a Game Boy Advance, it was most likely the Super Mario All-Stars version, although the original graphics appear in both Super Mario Maker games and Super Smash Bros. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel bad because of what these people have turned the game into, and Too Late is the only horror game that was made in that style that I know of as of now, and the fact that people even had the audacity to create so many creepypastas out of the older Mario games is probably the most disappointing thing and the greatest bullet in people's childhoods that I can think of. That night was without a doubt one of the most traumatizing nights I have had last year. When I say that, let me tell you what I ended up doing. And I assure you, I have never done this before. When I went to bed that Wednesday night, I left the lamp beside my bed on and fell asleep like that. The one thing that really rubbed salt into the wound was that the next day was my college freshman orientation, and I did the overnight orientation, meaning that I stayed in a college dorm room overnight. Luck was really on my side because when I filled out the form, I could either request a roommate or have a random one. I did not get a roommate at all. I had the room to myself, and I was more than happy about it. That Thursday night, since I was already very stressed out during the day, I brought a few things to do. I read one chapter of the Iliad that night, and that was also when I drew this sick drawing. I also left the light on near the front door, but I was nervous that I was wasting the university's power by doing so I had to get down from this elevated bed just to shut it off since there was a street light shining through the window beside the bed. And let me tell you how much of a pain that was because the ladder was really uncomfortable to get up and down, and there was no step stool for my short legs to get up there. I didn't go to sleep until past 1 a.m. and I was really tired in the morning, especially since I had another one of those bad dreams about that gosh dang creepypasta. Girl, you need to chill out. What the heck? Why are you interrupting me when I'm trying to speak? You're getting too carried away and you're gonna make the viewers uncomfortable. You're on the video cam. You're literally recording everything that's going on right now. Okay, well, the editor ain't cutting this out. I didn't say cut it out. I said, dang, you could have just kept going. You interrupted me. You know what? Shut the camera. No, I'm not. Shut the camera, you freaking imbecile. Nuh-uh. Don't make me come over there. You need to chill. Oh, crap. So after that, I came across every recent horror game that I saw on YouTube and removed each video from my watch history. About a week later, my oh-so-sympathetic brain told me that doing that would hurt the creators' algorithms. I don't know if that's actually true or not, and these are YouTubers that I have been watching for a while. Psh, one video can't hurt an entire algorithm, silly. I did it again. I thought it wouldn't be as bad because I already knew what was coming, but that plan backfired really fast. Ugh. Wow, Annalise, you just graduated high school and now you're a college freshman. You really think I finally learned my lesson since 2015? Nah. I was right back where I started. Well, not for long. At this point, I had to be the one to drop the hammer. Ever since Too Late traumatized me so badly, I made a vow to never come across anything that appeared to be a horror game to save my sanity and my peace. But what's crazy is that I have also seen it appear in other places throughout my recommendations because apparently YouTube thinks that if you watch a single video, then it automatically assumes that you liked it so much and it just shows you more of that same topic out of the blue. Wow, YouTube, what were you thinking? Now here's an area where I feel like this entire story may seem a bit biased. I also mentioned this in a community post. I'm a huge fan of Luigi's Mansion, and when I say that, I mean I'm obsessed with Luigi's Mansion. My approach is very different here since I think that Luigi's Mansion is too goofy to be a horror game, especially the second and third ones. It's more of a thriller because it focuses primarily on the story, includes some very funny moments, has peak multiplayer compatibility, and has a good ending. I don't see anything in this franchise that would attempt to traumatize the player, which is what a horror game does. Horror games don't have much of a story, nothing is funny, the ending is always unsettling or there is no ending at all. The age rating is often very high, and the top priority is to traumatize the player. Luigi's Mansion never traumatized me as a kid, not even the first one did. I feel like I've started giving Luigi a lot more attention ever since I was introduced to that creepypasta. One thing I did was set up a special Mario Party game and won. And yes, I did end up sleeping with the closet light on again, but it started to bother me because of the brightness. I also found a couple arrangements of Dark Pit's theme that were turned into lullabies that have actually helped me fall asleep better. This also gave me the idea to create a playlist of soothing and relaxing video game songs titled Music That Helps Me Sleep. I still use it to this day, mainly because I just like it now and the dead silence at night freaks me out in general, so I want something to listen to that'll keep my mind off of that. Also, I sleep in a room by myself, so I have no one to bother. Another thing that's helped was animal content, especially cat videos, dog videos, talking birds, and animal voiceovers. Even though I'm perfectly fine now, I still have beef with all of this creepypasta crap. Why? Well, back in 2021, there was a set of Kid Icarus music covered by this music channel, and when the full package went live, I had so much fun with it. I still have the songs saved to playlist, but a certain event involving that gosh dang creepypasta made me so mad, it feels like I've been betrayed. Sure, they did some cool Kid Icarus stuff a while back, but back in May this year, this happened. At least I can say from this moment on, my mortal enemy now has a competitor, and since Too Late was bad enough to reach that high of an enemy position and I'm still willing to say the name, then I might as well tell you what horror franchise my mortal enemy has been since 2015. It's FNAF. That was the one horror game that certain YouTubers would upload and I would refuse to watch it after years of intense rivalry. Now it's like that with every horror game. While I was at summer camp back in June last year, one different from the camp I normally go to, I overheard some people in my cabin saying that there was gonna be a FNAF movie, and I just didn't bother to say anything, even though I had no idea who those people even were, and it was probably the safest move not to say anything. I don't know. It was like 10 p.m. and I was extremely exhausted after a long day of summer fun. A few weeks after I got back home, I overheard my brothers talking about that movie, which was how I knew it was legit because I doubted it at camp. Apparently, they got upset with me for saying anything because I didn't want any of that stuff in my life at all, and I pretty much can't get away from it until I move out at least. But since I've graduated high school and I'm legally independent, I could have just decided not to go and see that movie with my family. Well, it's not like my mom, dad, and sister would want to go see it either, since my mom had already dropped the hammer on it in 2015. I have never seen a horror movie in my entire life, and I'm glad because I never felt interested. I would much rather do literally anything else that has nothing to do with horror, like, I don't know, live stream, make video game covers, video my cats, work on Mario Legends and Nightmare Mario stuff, do non-YouTube stuff, rewatch the Mario movie a million times, go to work at my job, heck, maybe I'll even be running a fever or something for all I care. I have a long list of things that I have loved for my entire life, but FNAF is definitely on the list of things that I have hated for my entire life. I never had a reason to like it or at least give it a chance. Even the trailers would continuously pop up in ads while I was innocently watching YouTube videos, and they appeared so often that I actually started to feel sick. Like, my head was hurting and everything. I probably felt like I was about to pass out too. Okay, I'm saying this like we were gonna go to the movies, and my family actually decided not to go see the movie in theaters. They decided to invite friends over and show the movie at home. And since I had nothing else to do, I took my sister that night out to dinner at Chick-fil-A and spent the night at my Nana's house. And we absolutely had a blast. When we got home, I asked the rest of my family how it all went. And every comment I received was that it was sorta disappointing and the hype for it was not worth it. Nobody ranked it any higher than a 7 out of 10. They also told me that there were unsettling moments that would have set me off if I was there, and it was not rewatchable. I don't even understand why my college marching band built up so much hype during the rehearsal that took place the day before my sister and I left the house. So I guess that's the end of the story now, right? Wrong. 4 weeks in, I was rewatching a certain famous YouTuber playing Mario blindfolded while being guided by another certain famous YouTuber, and whenever I saw the actual intro to Super Mario Bros. 3 and the real level 1-1, I was immediately set off. That gosh dang creepypasta would just not leave my mind, and I paused the video just to have a panic attack. The fault is not on the creators of this video or the original game. I just want to blame the one who uploaded the first video I have ever seen too late, and myself for viewing it several times. If you're curious about why the original intro instantly set me off into a panic attack, both intros are actually very similar. The original intro shows both Mario and Luigi with some Koopa shells, and a tanuki leaf falls from the sky. In the creepypasta intro, Luigi is not there, and the tanuki leaf is replaced by Luigi's hat. Mario's expression is also slightly different, which makes that intro very depressing. That's how similar they are. As I was going to bed that night, I realized why coping with this trauma was so hard that I cried. It's because these creepypastas are being made from Mario, my first childhood idol. Why do they have to target Mario? I decided to open up to my family about the situation and talk about it more with a therapist. Yes, a creepypasta sent me to therapy. This is truly the most crushed I have ever felt, seeing my childhood deteriorate thanks to some unforgivable works known as creepypasta. But the story doesn't end there. When I went to therapy, I ended up having to explain creepypasta, and I was shaking in the process. After I was done, my therapist told me to restrain myself from it and everything it came from. That meant that I had to lay off a few YouTubers for a while until the panic attacks I kept having weren't an everyday thing. And I also had to restrain myself from the oldest Mario games until the panic attacks stopped. I turned off all notifications from those specific people only, which worked, but my YouTube recommendation clearly wasn't buying it. Luckily, there is a feature where if you say you're not interested in something, then you can just get rid of it. Unfortunately, I still had a few panic attacks whenever certain topics were brought up all over the place, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do from there. That was the moment when I realized that this problem had gotten too far out of hand, and this was something that I had to put an end to quickly. The same creators who exposed me to creepypasta had been doing a lot more creepy stuff since then, and I ended up losing interest in everyone who did. And so, the hammer had officially dropped when I ultimately decided to unsubscribe from everyone who caused all of this trouble in the first place. One of the greatest tools I ever used to recover from this trauma was to get rid of the source once and for all. Another great tool was obviously wholesomeness, and I have a lot of wholesome stuff, including my kitties and animal videos. The third thing I did was rely on everything that is good. That gave me the thought that I can like everything that I like in the way that I want, and everything that other people say or think about it doesn't affect a single one of my fandoms. Those were my greatest and most lethal weapons I used to finally overcome the entire creepypasta community. Now I have no reason to fear creepypasta and horror games for another second of my life again. But there are still several things along that line that I'm still heavily sensitive about, thus explaining why I'm so strict about what my own content is gonna look like. So please cut me some slack since it's actually that bad. The most notable of such include blood, gore, and non-photogenic art styles that end up getting a lot of stuff age restricted, and I know I'm not the only one who's sensitive about those things. But one day, I will revisit Super Mario Bros. 3 and beat the game, so that I can finish what I started at the very beginning of my life. And now, I don't have to sleep with the closet light on anymore. I still sleep with music on though, mainly because I just like it. The awkward silence has always made me nervous anyways. I can like everything that I like just the way I want to, and I still get to enjoy wholesome games such as Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Kid Icarus, and so much more. Okay, so what about that dream you told about a Kid Icarus creepypasta? What did I tell you earlier? Shut up! That's the end of that story. Doing this is definitely different from previous videos since I've never told stories of the not so fun stuff about me. The game footage will come out by itself again, and for the next long form videos, I'm gonna get back to the fun stuff.